Hi, Crime Junkie jury. I'm Lauren Conlin, and this is your daily Diddy Digest. We are on day 14 of the United States versus Sean Combs, and I'm going to tell you everything that happened in court today. And by the way, just off the top of my head, I made eye contact with Diddy today in court during just a sidebar. I looked away just immediately, but he locked eyes with me. And there, for whatever reason, some of the press didn't come back right away after lunch. And it was kind of after lunch, I guess, maybe 30 minutes. So there was like this open space in front of me. So when he turned around, he just was kind of looking at the clock. The clock is behind me. And then he made eye contact with me. And I was like, whoop. And I looked away. But anyway, okay. So we finished the cross examination and the redirect of Mia, Diddy's former personal assistant and marketing, or I'm sorry, she was the director of development at Revolt TV. And there was no recross, thank goodness, because it was getting a little bit tedious, the cross examination by Brian Steele. And it got a little spicy, and I'll get into that. But he started off by talking about Mia's resume, and we saw her resume on the screen, the one that she used to get the job at Bad Boy to become a personal assistant. And he just highlighted some things that said that she was used to, quote, round the clock personal and professional needs because she previously worked for Mike Myers. He highlighted a section where she said she had thick skin, and also a part where she said that she collected personal items from Mike Myers and managed those personal items like driver's licenses, his passport, etc. And this caused Brian Steele to bring up an incident that she discussed during her direct examination, which was she was in St. Bart's with Diddy and he had screamed at her and humiliated her for not counting money fast enough. And she testified that, she wanted to leave. She wanted to leave St. Bart's, but she couldn't because someone on Diddy's team had her passport. And during the direct examination, they kind of made it seem like somebody was holding her passport on purpose so she couldn't leave. But this gave Brian Steele an opportunity to say, well, so this is normal. People hold on to people's passports and licenses and or birth certificates within these companies. So that's what someone was doing for you when you were in St. Bart's. So then we moved on to text messages from Mia to Diddy. And we were reminded that she officially stopped working for him in 2017. The texts that we saw were from 2018, 2019, and 2020. Now, one of the texts from January of 2019 really stuck in my head. She wrote this text to Diddy saying that she was thinking of him because she had a nightmare that she was trapped in an elevator with R. Kelly, and Diddy was the one that came to save her. And then she sent another text we saw in March of 2019 saying that she's sending him all the love in the world. Previously, we saw a text from Christmas of 2018 and then also New Year's of 2019 of her saying, Happy New Year's, I love you so much, calling him an inspiration, all of these things. And Brian Steele would say, well, Mia, who's making you send these text messages? You don't work for him anymore. And she just said, I just was kind of keeping the peace, so to speak. And then we saw a text message where she recommends that he should watch a show on Netflix in March of 2019. And then again, sending more love. And there was another text from May of 2020 that was actually, first there was a May of 2020 text where she texted him about Andre Harrell's passing. And it was a really big paragraph saying how much she loved Diddy and how amazing he was, and Harrell would be so proud. And it was, she said he was going through a hard time. This is why I texted him. Same with when Chadwick Boseman died. She texted him in August of 2020. And this kind of opened a little bit of, I guess, gossip in the courtroom because she named some celebrities in this text. And again, this is August of 2020. So they have this correspondence about something that they were doing, or something they were doing that pertained to Chadwick Boseman at this certain time period that she's referring to. And, Diddy had said, oh, do you have a recording of whatever they were talking about in this text message after she said she was sorry about Chadwick Boseman? And then Mia says, yeah, it's on one of my computers somewhere. And then she just starts reminiscing about some time they had, but she actually said, "Oh, remember when Mick Jagger was chasing me and I had to run to get away from him," type of thing. I'm paraphrasing. And then she talked about how Diddy called Leonardo DiCaprio that Titanic mother effer when they were somewhere together and they were both gambling, and Diddy won more money than he did or something like that. But just to hear him say, "Oh, that Titanic mother effer," or according to Mia, he said that, we were all like, okay. But again, just showing that they had this back and forth, this rapport years after Mia left the company. And again, Brian Steele would just point out, no one was making you do this. You were texting him because you were friends and you loved him. And yeah, we had text messages actually up until 2023, Christmas of 2023. So I thought that was really interesting, and the jury seemed to think so as well. They were paying very close attention. And somebody had reported last week, I think it was someone on YouTube, that one of the jurors were smirking or laughing during Brian Steele's cross. I didn't see that. I saw some jurors laughing Friday and today during some sidebars, which technically I guess are during the cross, but nothing when Brian Steele was questioning Mia, if that makes sense. Okay, so then I'm sorry, he starts bringing up the Me Too movement. And Mia had stated during direct that she didn't come forward initially because, the Me Too movement kind of gave her courage. She said, back, and I think I've said this, back when she was posting all the time on Instagram in 2012, 2013, it was more about like, how great is your life? Let's all just pretend that our life is so great. So Brian Steele is pointing out that these text messages, 2017, 2018, 2019, 2020, etc., Me Too was already a thing. So why was she holding on to this secret that he allegedly sexually assaulted her? And not only that, she's texting him and still telling him that she loves him. So he was just saying, well, Me Too was a thing. Why didn't you tell anyone at that point? And she said, I was brainwashed. And he's like, brainwashed? Is that your answer? And she's like, yeah. And then he kind of was like, well, what does it mean to be brainwashed? And then she went back into the highs are high, the lows are low. It was a quote, very confusing time. And then there another text message that she sent to him about, it was July of 2022. I think there was a Bad Boy doc that came out, and she said, "Oh, I saw our doc in the top 10s on Netflix. Congrats, miss you." He writes back, "Love, love, love." And then she writes back again, July of 2022. She writes back, "I love, love, love you." And Brian Steele also said, one of Mia's answers, and I think I mentioned this on Friday. She said, you should refer to the experts. I'm not an expert, but this is what survivors do. This is what victims do. And Brian Steele actually said, you keep referring to the experts, but how do you feel about this? Objection. And it was something about the form of the questioning. So speaking of the form, okay. So we took a morning recess, and this was right after a sidebar based on Brian Steele's cross, because there were a lot of objections, and it was mainly around improper form of questioning. So we were going to come back, I think, rather quickly, but then the government said, Your Honor, if I may, and this is what Mia wasn't there, the jury wasn't there, of course. But Maureen Comey said that she's like, I just want to put it on the record because I don't think the transcript is going to reflect what we are seeing in this courtroom. But Mr. Steele is yelling at this witness. He is being, hostile. He's humiliating her. And because of the way she's being treated, this is going to affect other cases down the line, because other victims are not going to want to come forward after they hear about how Mia has been treated on the stand. She brought up the fact that, Brian Steele was adding his own, what did she say exactly? She said something like that he was adding his own commentary. And he would say things like, let me figure this out, or let me, which I don't think was bad. He was kind of just like reiterating certain things. But anyway, when the judge spoke up, the judge just said, look, I actually haven't heard Mr. Steele yell or get loud with the witness. I haven't seen him be too hostile. It's a cross examination. So he was kind of giving him some flexibility. But one thing he said was, what I am seeing, and I don't know if this is on purpose or not, but when it comes to the form of the questions, when he is asked to rephrase the question or ask it differently, he doesn't really make the proper changes. And he said, I'm not sure if he's doing it on purpose, just so the jury kind of hears what he's trying to say. But Mr. Steele, if you're in here and Mr. Steele was sitting and he's like, yeah, I'm right here. He's like, that has to stop. You need to fix the form. And he just said, look, the government, you can continue on with your objections and I will sustain. And that's what they did. So when they came back after this, that's when it got, like, I thought it got really brutal, because we had objections for every single question, and Brian Steele could only rephrase them so quickly and so fluently for Mia to understand that, he was having trouble, because after the second or third time of him trying to rephrase an improper question, the judge would be like, okay, now it's time to move along because you're not getting it done. And then another point, Mia would she would repeat his question as though she was trying to understand it. And I understood some of them. I was like, ooh, that sounded like he just said some kind of double negative. That was tough. But other ones, I was like, okay, well, that was a little obvious. So what's going on? But needless to say, it felt like a very long time for the cross. I just want to make sure he showed us a video of Mia wishing Diddy a happy birthday in 2013. I'm just trying to make sure I get everything out there. Oh, he discussed the fact that she had testified that she didn't really get to see her family and friends too much because her life was Sean Combs. And he wanted to get these photos from her social media into evidence, where she was at baby showers, weddings, hanging out with family during holidays, so he could show that she did have time with family. Why didn't she say anything? And the judge did not want that to be admitted into evidence and said he could just ask her instead. And then he got into Cassie, Brian Steele, and they spent a significant amount of time on Cassie's career, highlighting all the things that Diddy did for Cassie. He hooked her up with this artist, with that artist. She did movies, she did modeling. Wouldn't you agree that Mr. Combs spent way more money on Cassie than he did on other bad boy artists, or more money went towards Cassie's marketing or her career? And Mia said, I don't know. And then he showed her an email that we did not see to refresh her memory. And this was between somebody in budgeting at Bad Boy and her and a few other people. They were talking about Cassie and something about that she was doing some project. And Mia just said, look, I get a lot of emails. This doesn't refresh my memory in terms of budgeting, but he hinted that Diddy spent more on Cassie than other artists, and we had heard that before as well. And then he said, like, do you remember telling Cassie, sticking up for Diddy, saying, oh, well, he only lashes out at people he loves. Do you remember comparing him to a toddler having a tantrum? And she said, yeah, I mean, this was my job at the time, essentially, to kind of, placate him. I was his employee. So yes, although Cassie, I was very close with her and she was like my sister, unfortunately, I had to sort of say these things to mitigate the situation. And he seemed to bring this up a lot. This was your sister, and you still texted Sean Combs that you love him, even though he pile drove her head into a bed and sexually assaulted you. Oh, and then Brian Steele also made this comment, like, he said, you've mentioned that the highs are high and the lows are low, but how do you make an excuse for sexual assault when it comes to the lows being low? How do you even compartmentalize that there? Sexual assault is this whole different beast. And again, objection. So she didn't get to answer. But yeah, that was pretty much the extent of it. Oh, just kidding. The last thing they focused on was her meetings with the government. She had about 27, and it was revealed that she did not share that she was allegedly sexually assaulted until her third meeting. And Mia said, I didn't disclose that I was sexually assaulted until I had a lawyer present. And Brian Steele said, okay, well, you had a lawyer present at your March 2024 meeting, but you didn't tell the government about being allegedly sexually assaulted until the June of 2024 meeting. And she said, okay. And then he tried really hard to get in the fact that she was using Sean Crowley as an attorney who had just had this big settlement, but there was an objection. And so he could not. And also, there were two occasions where he tried to talk about Mia's therapy notes and how she waived her privilege to try to get these in somehow. And there was objections both times. And then they had a sidebar, and the judge told the jury to disregard any questioning about the therapy notes. So, yes. Okay. So that is, I guess I could say he brought up the slamming of the door in her arm when Diddy stole her phone. He also brought up she and Cassie paddleboarding away in Turks and Caicos, kind of hinting like, did this stuff actually happen? Did you take a photo of your arm? Did anybody hear you scream? Because that sounds really painful if someone's slamming your arm in a door. She said no. She said she kind of blacked out. With the paddle boards, he asked, did you tell anyone this happened? Did you text a picture to anyone? She said no. Again, just hinting that maybe this stuff didn't happen. And okay, that really was the extent of the cross. Now I'm finished. So redirect, it was pretty standard, pretty simple, but the government just asked her essentially about the birthday post. Like, you texted Diddy on his birthday and you did all these posts for him on his birthday because you were his employee and you were expected to. And if you didn't, that will be weird, right? And she said, yeah, like if I was the only employee not posting on my personal account for his birthday, that would be strange. She said she basically felt like she had to. And then they reiterated, well, wasn't it part of your job for your personal life and your personal Instagram to kind of partner a bit with posts and things that Diddy was doing, like Ciroc, or there was something that she posted about the Diddy door or the Bad Boy reunion tour. She just said, yeah, this was part of my job to post these. So yes, it bled over into my personal life. Oh, and then, sorry, I did leave this part out. Sorry, with the cross-examination, because it's important. It's very important. Brian Steele elicited from Mia that she worked for Madonna after Diddy for about 8 months, saying like, so he didn't blacklist you from the industry like you thought, type of thing. And she just said, well, he didn't help me get the job either. So, but they did, again, during redirect, go through that, yes, she had PTSD, and she really only worked for Madonna. It was a contracted time period. She said she was supposed to do 3 months, ended up doing 8 months, and then it was done. Yeah, that was pretty much it for the redirect. Again, just reminding us that she was in a very complicated situation, and she came forward when she felt comfortable, when she had therapy. And they said, why do you want to be here? Why do you want to testify? Because they made sure that we all knew she wasn't getting any money out of this. Oh, and they also brought up that when she met with the government very recently, she was using a pro bono lawyer. So it wasn't any type of big shot civil attorney money grab type of thing. Oh, yeah. And during the redirect, she also stated that someone named Kayla, a personal assistant, was fired for discussing Cassie's abuse. And when this happened, Diddy said to her, you're going to have to testify against her in court one day. And also said the same thing about Capricorn Clark when she left. I don't know what he's talking about, testify, but Mia said that he said that to her, which again was one of the reasons that she never told anyone about Cassie being abused or about herself being abused. And yes, at the end, they said, why are you testifying today? And she kind of got emotional and said, I just couldn't look my niece or goddaughters in the eyes again if I didn't, something along those lines. So then we were done with Mia, no recross. I think everybody was very happy to just get Mia moving along. And overall, I would say her demeanor on the stand, she generally has a positive vibe, I think, and she was happy to answer the questions. She had a good attitude about it. my only time was I was like, I wonder if she is repeating some of these questions, if she truly doesn't understand it, or if she's kind of giving Steele a taste of his own medicine. Okay, so then we moved on to the last witness of the day, Sylvia Oken, who is an employee of the Beverly Hills Hotel. She's been there for 17 years. She's currently the director of sales and marketing, and she previously focused on their quote entertainment clients. So we saw profiles, we saw invoices, and essentially the purpose of her testimony was to show that Diddy booked rooms under an alias. It was Philip Pines and Frank Black. And then we saw a profile that had Cassie's name as one of the people that would frequent the hotels with him. And then we saw some bills that had a miscellaneous charge for $500 for oil damage, corroborating what we've heard before with the hotel rooms. And then a $300 charge on a separate bill for a deep clean of the drapes for $300. And during Tenny Garagos did a very quick cross-examination where she just said, listen, it's not weird for celebrities to use aliases like the Frank Black or Philip Pines. And Sylvia Oken's like, nope, totally normal. And then she just said, also, you don't need to have everybody's name on the room that comes and goes through, to the hotel room, right? Like just one is fine. And she's like, yeah, just one, but we don't know who's in the hotel room. And then Tenny Garagos kind of focused in on one area where there were two names. It was Cassie Ventura and Dominique Neal. And then she said, oh yeah, there's two names basically. And then Tenny said no further questions. So we were kind of left with that. Now, what we have on the docket for this week, by Wednesday or Thursday, we are going to hear from what I think is the last and final victim, Jane, because I believe that victim Gina is not coming from what we had heard at the beginning of the trial because she could not be reached and her attorneys could not be reached. They also talked about one of Cassie's friends testifying, Bana or Brianna, and then someone named Eddie Garcia, who will be testifying tomorrow. I believe he is somebody that worked at the Intercontinental Hotel that was there for the beatdown in 2016. He did get sworn in this morning and he has been granted immunity. So I'm thinking that maybe this is pure speculation. Perhaps he was offered some money by Diddy and he took it, so he needs immunity. Who knows? We will find out. But anyway, all right. That's your almost 23-minute daily Diddy Digest. I'm Lauren Conlin. Thank you for watching, and I will see you for her next update tomorrow.